Time for a quick Slurpee. Oh, that feels so good. Hello, all of you little demons. Jules here for WhatCulture.com, back again with another episode of the awesomely named and awfully hosted Tues Your Own Adventure, the weekly medieval-themed format where I, the crown Jules of WhatCulture.com, take a list chosen by you, yes, you, the person who has just finished wrapping their final Christmas present for the year, and have actually been left with the best bit of all of the wrapping stuff. The little cardboard bit at the end. Just pretend it's a sword and you're just like, take that, Father Christmas, get out of my house. Anyway, moving on, yes, you get to decide what list I dole out to you each and every week. And this week, we're talking about video games that had to fix massive plot holes. Now, by their own admission, devs of even AAA video game franchises have commented from time to time that their games are usually held together with bits of twine and the collective will of everyone in the studio. And thanks to cuts, changes, and alterations that happen across the gestation stage, these connecting fibers are often knotted and frayed all over the place. So much so that plot holes might begin to appear in even your favourite titles. Characters might just straight up disappear. You might have completely unclear motivations as to why certain things are happening the way that they've happened. And you might even just get bosses that go, we're going to have a fight. No, we're not, because my boss battle was cut, and such. Whatever the case, for the most part, we all just have to like it and swallow our lumpy, very lumpy gravy. Yet some games actually make a concerted effort to fix their own wounds with sutures in the form of patches, expansions, and sequels explaining away the oddities. So let's take a look at them today, as I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 7 video games that had to fix massive plot holes. And you know the drill by now, say hi to me here in the live chat and also put your suggestions for next week's episode down in the comments section below. And with that, let's get on with the list, shall we? Number 7, Fallout 3's entire ending. Fallout 3 Broken Steel DLC. Now, arguably one of the most frustrating moments in all of video game history has to be found in the scenario that the player comes across at the end of Fallout 3. So at this point in time, you've guided your character from pathetic vault dweller all the way through to a warrior of the wasteland, and were likely carting around enough bottle caps to beat someone to death with, alongside an armory of weird and wonderful weapons. Truly, you were the greatest hero, or indeed the ultimate villain, depending on your actions. And now, it was time to see your story come to an end. Except it was this final part that Bethesda took quite literally, as you were just forced to sacrifice yourself for the greater good. Because yes, in the final mission you had to step inside an irradiated cubicle in order to set off a plot-centric device. Now normally this would be all well and good except for one teeny tiny detail. Maybe I don't want to. I mean, that sounds awful. That's a rough deal for me, and I'm the person who's going to have to die here. Why can't my super mutant companion or my robotic pals go in my stead? A?
B!
Because lest we not forget, they're immune to radiation. Yet for some reason, your companions in this moment suddenly present their philosophy 101 degrees and start spouting off nonsense along the lines of it being your destiny. I tell you what, folks, even though you look like the Jolly Green Giant, you're being a right sweet corn in the turd right now. Thankfully in the game's DLC, although I'm not entirely sure we should be thanking a company for charging us to fix a problem that shouldn't have been in there in the first place, now you're able to convince your companions to take your place or find another sap to sacrifice themselves while you revel in the resulting glory. Yes, James, we've travelled together down many a road, but now I think it's time for us to part ways. Just go and sacrifice yourself over there, you know. I'm sure the tale will spread of how you definitely did all of the hard work and I was just here along for the ride.
That's fair enough. Okay. Bye now.
Yes. I'm not going to tell anyone that he did that. I'm just going to say I saved the world. I mean... Idiot. Jules! Number 6, Human Traitor Turned Turian, Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Now sometimes plot holes in video games appear because of the fact that there have been lots of cuts to the script, and other times it's because the devs didn't foresee something so small that the fan base would then blow up into this whole big thing. And sometimes plot holes are created just because an art asset was placed on the wrong thing. This is exactly what happened in Mass Effect thanks to the character of Ilanos Haliat. Here, players were introduced to a human with such a chip on his shoulder that he might as well have bought a deep-vat fryer and made some serious bank, and who also wants to put a dent in the Alliance through violent means, as well as taking out the first human Spectre, aka you. However, some odd things occur when the player starts looking at his dialogue, which keeps referring to humans as shepherd's kind, as well as expressing mass disdain for humans in general. This, coupled with his attacks on Elysium, with other human-hating mercenaries, definitely makes for a rather strange moment. Are we witnessing an interesting take of a man who is so filled with self-hatred that he rejects his own race? Are we seeing BioWare tackle a very interesting and new story thread? No, it just turns out that he was meant to be a Turian and they just put the wrong model on him. But it was fixed in the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Cheers for that. Number 5. Shocked and Locked Up. Batman Arkham Knight. Now, while a lot of Batman fans might write off Arkham Origins as being a very unnecessary entry into the franchise, there is actually a lot to compliment about this title. I mean, even though the multiplayer mode was completely needless, it's actually pretty decent, and there's a lot of fun gadgets to use, and by that I really mean that there's one gadget that is hilarious to use, and that is the shock gloves. Give him the shocker. Wait, no, don't. That'll get us on a age rating list. Because yes, the standout star of the show isn't the Joker and friends hamming it up to charcuterie levels, nor the enjoyable Xmas setting of the title, but a piece of Juicy Bruce's arsenal that is so batterly broken that it makes Bane's back-breaking palms begin to sweat. And speaking of course about the almighty shock gloves, which basically put the experience on easy mode, as you're now able to do double damage, smash through tougher enemies, and send enough currents through foes that they'd end up looking like raisins by the time that you were done with them. However, this amazing bit of tech also created a bit of a plot hole, because after all, if they were so utterly brilliant, then why does Batman never use them again in the subsequent games? Well, Arkham Knight had a pretty non-fun answer to this, but still tied things up at least. Because in this game, you can visit the Gotham Police Armory and see the gloves locked inside a cabinet. And you can also hear officers muse about why Batman doesn't use something like that, which would make his job infinitely easier, before then conceding that Juicy Bruce probably wants a bit more of a challenge. Like I said, it's not exactly a fun answer, but there we go. Number 4. What happened to the Soul Stone? Diablo 2 Resurrected. Now, if you're young enough to remember the almighty Diablo 1, then you know that was a rollicking good time. But things definitely ventured into the, how best to describe it? Oh yeah, what the hell is going on when it came to the game's ending, which, I mean, it was a bit of a doozy, because your chosen character, canonically it's the warrior, defeats Diablo, takes his soul stone, and then rams the thing into his head. I'm sorry, did I skip a few pages here? What the hell are you doing? Yeah, it was a bit weird, but thanks to an explanation on the subject by the developers, it was done by the hero in order to buy what little time of peace they could by pitting Diablo against their own mortal soul. If they'd just left the soul stone there, another one could have claimed it for evil, or worse, the power of Diablo might have been so strong that it might have called another to become its vessel. However, there was still a rather massive plot hole created by the soul stone when it came to the almighty and monolithic sequel Diablo 2. Now, the confusion sprang up because in the original Diablo 2's cinematics, we'd see the warrior now lose control with his battle with Diablo and start to morph into the Lord of Terror. But there was a massive gaping hole where the Soul Stone should have been in his forehead. This, coupled with a trailer that was shipped with certain copies of StarCraft, seemed to suggest that the warrior had removed and then cast away the Soul Stone, but was still somehow inhabited by Diablo's malevolent presence. Yet when players came to face Diablo again, there he was, rocking that stone like a horn. So where the hell did it come from? Were the cinematics non-canon? Was there an issue with the renders? Well, it turns out that the Soul Stone was meant to appear in the warrior's forehead, but for some reason or another just didn't make the final cut. But this was fixed in Diablo 2 Resurrection. Here in the updated cinematics, we can see the Soul Stone forcing its way through his skull as he finally loses control. Now, it's a small touch by Vicarious Visions, but one that truly helped both put a plot hole to rest and put players of the original in the mood to do more slaying in the name of justice. Right, James, just gather up all of the sharp objects that you have to hand here, because we've got to go out slaying for justice again. It's just that time of day. Number 3. How did I get here? We happy few. So as a man who routinely wakes up so utterly bleary-eyed and unaware of his surroundings that it feels like I've just been stepping back a few chains on the evolutionary scale, and also as a man who enjoys a pint from time to time, I can definitely say that the words what is going on and where am I have come out of my mouth several times. That being said, when it comes to video games, that one little question can burrow deep enough that it becomes a rather annoying plot hole. And we see it all the time in media, where our protagonist gets knocked out and dragged to a new location, but when it comes to the opening moments of We Happy Few, the beatdown that Arthur receives at the end of the prologue and his subsequent awakening in the city limits wasn't one that actually made sense. Now, for clarity here, I'm talking about the experience that people played through in the early access version of this game, because when it came to the retail version, this was fixed, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's dial it back. Oh, I caught a fish. I say this because the beatdown that he received by the bobbies wasn't one to teach you a lesson, it was to out and out kill you. These peelers weren't looking to roughhouse you and then dump you in the wastes, they were dealing with a problem the only way that they knew how to, and that was to kick your bloody face in. Thankfully, the devs of the game realised that this was an issue thanks to their early access feedback, and in their Clockwork update video, they state in their own words that alongside the fix, that we hope that this answers the how the f*** did we get down here question. Yes, it does. Thank you very much. Number 2, Final Fantasy XV patches its entire story. Final Fantasy XV. Now, if we're being brutally honest, even though the lads on tour vibe that Final Fantasy XV gives off is absolutely one of its most outstanding moments, when it comes to the actual plot of the game, it's a bit of a mess. Despite the team stating over and over that the choppy and convoluted story wasn't the result of the game being scrapped and rebuilt from the ground up several times over, it's hard not to look at the overall plot as little more than a collage of ideas at times. Characters arrive and exit without much fanfare, and odd direction means that sometimes the emphasis is placed on the wrong people in the scene, leaving players confused as to why that person never returns again or does anything of note. Still, having a plot that sounds like it's being relayed from one person to another via a string and 2 cans at the end, and you're only getting like 3 words because there's some hardcore drum and bass just pumping out into the other end, just like, what? Yeah, demons? Crystals? Rings? What? That's not going to stop the development team, and especially not the game's director, who went on record to state that they were going to use patches to fix pretty much all of the plot holes. It was an interesting move to have a developer acknowledge the missing pieces while promising to also remedy them, and to their credit, after almost a year of drip-fed drops, the game was in a much better state. Now, sub-characters like Ravus got much more fleshed out moments, and DLC episodes that expanded the ending and even main villains' motivations meant that Final Fantasy XV is finally the game it arguably should have been the first time around. Still, it is now one hell of a ride with a finely tuned engine. And number 1, who would live in a house like this? Resident Evil 1 Remake. Now, have you ever been wandering around the Spencer Mansion in the brilliant Resident Evil 1 and thought to yourself, wait a gosh darn minute, what the hell is going on here? Why is this house designed like this? Nobody would want to live here. I mean, no worries if you didn't, as you're likely trying to avoid having your leg bitten off and then said leg being humped to death by a pursuing Cerberus, but still, once you step, or in this case hop back, and take a look at the architecture of the mansion in question, it really does raise a pretty huge plot point, and was quite the immersion breaker for some fans who just couldn't get behind the, at the time, shrug of an answer of, because video games. After all, who in the name of Wesker would want to live in a house where the key to get to your kitchen is hidden inside a suit of armor that is 3 floors above you in a room that only becomes unlocked if you've managed to fish a keycard out of what is affectionately known as the Tunnel of Birds? Well, the answer is that you wouldn't, right? Well, thanks to the Resident Evil 1 remake and its slightly more fleshed out narrative bits that you can find dotted around the area, you learn that this isn't actually a mansion designed to be lived in, and it is, in fact, the greatest escape room, and say it with me kids, of all time! God, that one felt like it was a good un. George Trevor, as explained in the Resident Evil 1 remake, was the architect of this mad mansion, and was contracted to create a wondrous gimmick house that he believed would be used by Oswald Spencer as a private retreat. Therefore, all of the puzzles present in the top side of the mansion were all implemented with the concept of being a fun set of challenges for the super wealthy owner and his friends. However, as we all know, Oswald truly wanted the house to be so confusing so that intruders would never find his secret laboratory, and indeed began to adapt George's designs further and further, adding in death traps to thwart those who press too far. So now we finally understand why you have rooms like the Jill sandwich room or the big spike trap. It's because they weren't there in Trevor's original designs. They were just added in to be like, oh yeah, if they do actually get past this bit here, just crush them to death. Why not just have a guy with a gun on the door just sitting on the other side, walk in, it's a shotgun, just like, you're not meant to be here, blam! Kablamo! Reload. Blam! So there we have it. This is a murder mansion that was made for a laugh, but turned into anything but. And as an added bit of spice, George's firm can actually be found throughout other Resident Evil games because it was contracted to build other crazy design puzzles that were then warped into the nefarious purposes for like the likes of Tricell and Umbrella. They even designed the stuff that's on that ship that you play in Resident Evil Revelations. You can even find a receipt for one of the traps that he's built. I think it's like another bird trap in Resident Evil 7. It's a nice little touch there. Enjoy it. Little bravo. Little round of applause. Well done, you. Anyway, right, we're done. So there we have it, friends. That was another episode of Choose Your Own Adventure. I think it was a pretty good one today, James. What do you reckon?
I thought it was incredible.
And I'm getting really excited, actually, because next week we actually have a super special episode because, of course, it is our Christmas episode. Wait, what? What did you just say?
100th episode.
100th episode.
Yes.
Is it actually?
Yes.
Jesus Christ, we've been going for a long time. Wait a minute. No, the Christmas episode and the 100th episode are on the same week.
Yes.
Well, we're just going to do the Christmas one, right?
No, we're going to do the 100th.
No, we're doing the Christmas one.
The 100th episode.
No, we're doing the Christmas one.
No, the 100th episode.
No, we're doing the 100th one. I got you. No, we're doing the Christmas one, though, seriously.
We're going to do the 100th one.
Okay, I hope this doesn't become a plot point. We'll hash this out over the next coming week, and then we'll hopefully next week have one that is definitely going to be the Christmas episode, because that's the one that obviously should be, right?
No, the 100th episode, Jules.
No, it's the Christmas episode.
It is going to be the
I'm doing the outro.
Episode.
I'm doing the outro. I'm shutting you down. I'm shutting you down, mate. I'm clicking on you.
Look,
clicking you.
The best
Power down.
Power
down, mate. Actually, no, I'm just going to mute you. I'm going to mute you. I'm going to change your voice to Spanish.
Tonto eres
un
huevo estúpido y yo creo que eres un...
Bye. Keep talking, mate. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Look. I've muted myself. This ending's already going on long enough, mate. I'm just going to the outro.
It's going to be the 100th.
There we go, friends. Hope that you enjoyed this episode, and you know the score by now. Just send me a message about what you'd like to see in the comment section below, and I really do hope that you have enjoyed this silly little series so far. Next week, we'll obviously be back with our super special episode, but if you want to chat to us further, you can do so by going over to Twitter and following me at RetroJ with a 0, and you can follow James Dowes over at James Dowsy with an extra E on the end there, and you can also find me over on Live and Let's Dice, where I do all of my Warhammer stuff and streaming outside of work, and it'd be great to see you over there. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. You, my friend, even though we are coming to the end of the year, the nights are drawing in, and the lights are going down all the time, I hope that you are still the shining, bright example of humanity that I know you are. You deserve love, happiness, and success, and you should never let anything or anyone else tell you otherwise, all right? Go out there and absolutely smash it. I believe in you. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that. And I'll speak to you soon. Bye. It's the Christmas episode.